You didn't grow up strong. You grew up unattended. The cost shows up now as a life where nobody ever finds out when you're struggling. 10 signs you were never comforted as a child, not the loud ones everybody already knows. By sign 10, you'll know exactly which part of you learned to handle itself and roughly when. The adults in your house didn't have to be cruel for this. Most weren't. They were tired, or working doubles, or busy with something bigger than you could see from 3 feet up. A child doesn't grade intent. A child measures one thing. I made a sound, and something either came or it didn't. Quick warning before sign 1. A few of these will sound like compliments. Some have been said to you at work by people who meant it. That's the whole problem. The reason none of this ever got fixed is that most of it got applauded. Sign 1. You handle everything alone before anyone gets a chance to offer. Everybody knows the version where you refuse help. That's not the tell. The tell is the speed. Somebody starts to say, "Do you want me to?" And the no is already out of your mouth before they finish. You didn't decide anything. Something answered for you. Moving day is where you see it. 3 people offered. You rented the truck alone and did the stairs alone, and it genuinely was easier. Because the asking costs you something nobody can watch you paying. Somewhere back there, asking had a worse return than carrying. You tried it a few times, and what came back was a sigh, or nothing. So the system did the math and stopped running the experiment. You're not independent. You've just had a lot of practice being the only one in the room. Sign 2. You automatically shrink your own pain to a smaller number. You know the chart at urgent care, the faces, 1 through 10. You've stood in front of it with something genuinely wrong and heard yourself say 4, maybe. It wasn't a 4. You knew that while you were saying it. So you'll walk on the ankle for 9 days. And when someone asks how you're doing, you hand over the rounded down number without a flicker of it feeling like a lie. Toughness has nothing to do with it. This is what happens when your distress kept getting treated as a false alarm. A kid who cries and gets nothing learns the reading must have been wrong. So they adjust it and do it for 20 years. You didn't stop hurting. You just stopped counting it. Sign 3. When somebody takes care of you, the first thing you feel isn't relief. It's guilt. Care shows up like a delivery you didn't order. You sign for it. You say thanks, and you leave the box by the door, unopened, waiting for someone to say it was meant for the house next door. I want you to sit with where that starts, because there's an experiment that catches it. Edward Tronick, a developmental psychologist, ran what's now called the still face procedure. A mother plays with her baby. Normal, warm, back and forth. Then, on cue, she goes blank. Not angry, just a flat face for 2 minutes. The baby escalates, smiles bigger, points, reaches, screeches, every tool it has, because it's confident the tools work. And then, if nobody comes back, there's a moment where the baby stops, turns its head away, looks at its own hands, starts working the situation alone. But that's the part nobody quotes, not the crying, the stopping. That small, efficient turn away from a face that isn't answering. That's the first draft of you. That baby didn't learn that comfort is unavailable. It learned something more expensive. Comfort arrives, then it leaves, and the leaving is the part to be ready for. So now, 30 years on, kindness doesn't land as kindness. It lands as a thing you'll answer for. Sign 4. You can comfort other people beautifully. You just can't be on the other side of it. Somebody texts you at 2 in the morning, falling apart, and you're good at this. Genuinely good. You know when to talk and when to stay quiet. Now flip it. You'd honestly rather reinstall your entire operating system at midnight than type 4 words to a friend saying you're not okay. That gap isn't kindness. It's a skill you learned from the wrong side of the glass. You studied comfort the way a kid studies a room they weren't invited into. Closely, constantly, from the doorway. You've just never been the person it was performed for. So you give it away expertly, and you take delivery of it like a stranger. If any of the first 4 landed harder than you expected, subscribe before the next one. It genuinely helps this reach people who think it's just their personality. Because the last 6 are the ones almost nobody connects to being uncomforted. Especially sign 7, which explains why your life quietly gets easier the worse things get. Sign 5. Your bar for what counts as a real problem is set somewhere around catastrophe. You'll tell people about the car accident. You will not tell anyone about the 6 weeks you weren't sleeping. One of those is a story with a shape and an ending. The other is just your life, and your life doesn't qualify. I want you to find the last thing you considered serious enough to say out loud, unprompted. For a lot of you, the honest answer is a death, a diagnosis, or nothing. That bar got set early, and it got set by data. Small distress got no response. Big distress got one. Maybe just panic, or somebody finally putting the phone down. Either way, the message was clean. There's a threshold, and below it nothing happens. So it isn't that you don't have problems. It's that in 20 years, almost nothing has qualified. Sign 6. You apologize for taking up emotional space. Listen to how you open. Sorry, this is probably stupid, but right before the truest thing you've said all month. Sorry, I know you're busy, to somebody who asked. People apologize for crying in front of a therapist they are paying by the hour. Some of you aren't being considerate. You're shrinking before anyone has asked you to, and calling it politeness because that hurts less than calling it what it is. But the apology isn't manners. It's a permission slip you write for yourself, in advance. Because you grew up in a house where having a need at the wrong hour changed the temperature of the whole room. You learned to knock before entering conversations you were already in. Sign 7. You are more comfortable in a crisis than you are when everything is fine. Think about a rescue crew in a city that stopped having disasters. Trucks washed, equipment perfect. The crew still sleeps with their boots by the bed. The hard shift was never the night the river came up. It's the third quiet Tuesday in a row. Colleen is from Mobile, Alabama, and when the evacuation order came through, she ran 41 hours without missing a beat. Her mother's insulin in a cooler with the good ice. The documents in the fireproof box, in order. A container of pimento cheese, sandwiches, her mother's rosary, and she worked this out around Montgomery. No charger for her own phone. She hates being in charge. She'll tell you that herself. She just can't stop. And when her aunt said, "I don't know what we would do without you," Colleen said, "Well, somebody's got to know where the papers are. Everyone in that family calls her the calm one. She isn't. Her threat detection has simply found something worth doing. In an emergency, the vigilance finally has a job, and for 41 hours, she isn't a person with needs. She's a function. That's the most peaceful she gets. And calm is harder. Calm is when there's nothing to manage and nobody to hold together, and the old feeling comes up through the floor, the one from the house, where nothing is coming. You're not an adrenaline junkie. You just learned to feel useful before you ever learned to feel safe, and only one of those two ever showed up on time. Sign 8. 2 of the signs you were never comforted as a child arrive, disguised as gifts, and this is the second. You know what everyone in the room is feeling before you know what you're feeling. Somebody's voice drops half a step on the phone and you've already got it. Then somebody asks what you want for dinner, and there's a pause. You're not consulting a preference. You're scanning the table for what everyone else wants, then landing on whatever costs the least. And that's not intuition. It's surveillance that got very good, in a house where reading the mood early decided what kind of evening everyone got. You can name what everyone in the room is feeling. Ask you, and there's a pause. Sign 9. You can cry. You just can't do it while somebody's watching. You cry in the car, in the shower, at a Subaru commercial at 1 a.m, alone, and it's fine. Put one human being in the room and the tap shuts off so fast it's almost mechanical. You felt it rise in front of someone and swallowed it, then apologized for the 10 seconds you lost. And people will call that reserved. Reserved is a temperament. What you've got is rehearsed, because crying is a signal. It isn't a feeling coming out, it's a request going out. And a request only stays worth sending if something arrives. Yours stopped arriving early, so the signal didn't disappear. It got rerouted, out to where there's nobody to receive it. You never stopped crying. You just stopped doing it anywhere it could count for anything. Sign 10. You can ask for things. You cannot ask for a person. Pass the salt. Fine. Cover my shift. Fine. But can you stay is a sentence you have not been able to get out of your mouth since you were about 9. So here's what that costs you, measured. James Coan, a neuroscientist at Virginia, put people in an fMRI scanner and told them they might get a mild electric shock. Alone in the machine, the threat response lights up the way you'd expect. A stranger reaches in and holds their hand, and it drops. A partner holds it instead, and it drops further. Same threat, same voltage. Different amount of brain required to survive it, because the brain counts a nearby person as part of its own resources, which means asking was never the weak option. It's the only thing in this whole video that's been measured making the hard thing physically smaller. So, 10 signs you were never comforted as a child, and not one is a personality flaw. Every one is a working system that came online in a room where nobody was answering and kept running long after you moved out. You were never too much. There was just never anyone there. You're allowed to be the one who needs something. 3 things, in this order. First, give the real number. Next time someone asks how you're doing, don't round it down. Say the 4 is actually an 8. Second, ask for presence instead of a task. Can you stay on the phone while I make this call is a full sentence, the exact thing Coan was measuring. And third, the hard one. When somebody takes care of you, don't pay it back in the same conversation. No favor, no joke, no evening it out by Sunday. Let it stay uneven for one night. That discomfort is not gratitude. It's the alarm you've been obeying since you were 4. Colleen, 3 weeks later. The house is fine. Nobody needs anything. The garbage disposal jams, and she stands there with her hand on the switch, and then she sits down on the kitchen floor. 41 hours didn't do it. A jammed disposal did. She doesn't call anyone, and she doesn't entirely know why. Which sign was yours? Just leave the number. And if you're the person who watches this at 1 in the morning and tells nobody, subscribe, at least, so the next one finds you.